can lean into your own personal discomfort, say what needs to be said in a non-offensive way, the more you make the world a better place.
All right. Welcome, social platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube. Welcome to our weekly live where I discuss a topic that's been curated for me by Brenda from B Branding as she pays attention to trends that are occurring on social media and things that are of value to talk about and timely for those interested in uh, communicating more effectively through them, whether that's crisis de escalation or just being assertive with how you communicate in an appropriate, non offensive way. And micromanagement is certainly high on that list of topics that are unpleasant to deal with when you're on the receiving side of it. Um, I don't know about you, but there have certainly been plenty of occasions where I have been micromanaged in my duties and found it particularly tedious to deal with because of what I was feeling as a result of the experience of being micromanaged. And that will be our context today. If you are a recipient of micromanagement, how might you language yourself in a way to potentially reduce that experience in your work life and engender greater trust and responsibility along with that trust to become more uh, autonomous in your duties? It was my colleague and friend Dan Gapsch who brought a body of research and a training program to me some years ago that identified three attributes of work satisfaction: mastery, autonomy, and purpose. And that the more that you can support mastery, autonomy, and purpose in members of the workforce, the more effective their work will be, the more their satisfaction with the workplace grow. And micromanagement certainly undermines autonomy, purpose, and mastery of anything. So let's talk a little bit about it because that's what we do in these lives. We talk about how to talk about things so that you can be more effective in talking about things. Let's say you have an experience of being micromanaged. What are some fundamental questions that would be worthy to ask if you thought about them of the person doing the micromanagement? Think about that for a moment. What would you want to ask them? Would one of those questions potentially be, is this how you engage all members of the workforce that work for you? I think that's a valuable question to have answered. If they are observably engaging in micromanagement activity beyond you, if this seems to be a pattern, what might you conclude about that? You might conclude that this doesn't have anything to do with you. It doesn't have anything to do with the quality of your work. It may just be how this person engages the world. What might motivate them to engage in micromanagement? What might be motivating this person to double check, triple check, proofread everything that I do? Could the answer to that question possibly be that there was an experience or series of experiences in their history where not doing that resulted in some kind of adverse event for them, necessitating that this is what they do for the future? That's not an unreasonable question. You may not have the answer to that, but these are things to consider. And on that basis, the third question is, can I potentially revise the way that this person deals with me to minimize the discomfort that I experience with the micromanagement? Or can engagement about this topic with the person enable me to accept for now, that micromanagement in this current department and with this current person is inescapable, but I am not attached to it anymore. I am not attached to the unpleasantness of this anymore. That's a worthy question. So, what might be some ways of talking about the experience of being micromanaged by a manager or a supervisor who does this? I'll give you a couple of examples that I think make sense. You don't have to agree with them, but I want you to experience how I language my way through this following a method. And many of you know, if you've been following these lives, that we routinely come back to a proposed method of thinking and speaking known as either VDSP, which is validate, defer, suggest, and prompt, or the old tried and true nonviolent communication method known as OFNR, observe, feelings, needs, and then request. What might a VDSP sound like to someone who's engaging in micromanagement? It might be this. Let's say my manager's name was Sue. Sue, I completely appreciate and observe that you have a commitment to excellence and detail, and that whatever I produce is going to be reviewed for quality. I totally get that and appreciate it. In this workplace, open communication is a value that is supported by the leadership and is supposed to mark our culture. I'd like to suggest that if my work quality routinely produces excellence with little to no revision, that it might be subject to less intense review. If we're able to accomplish that, we'd probably be able to get these things to the front end of the customer more quickly. In other words, what I'm proposing here is I see that you have a commitment to quality. We have a value of open communication in our job, in our workplace. I'm suggesting that if you have to revise my work, little or not at all, that you are inclined to approve it more quickly so we can be more efficient in how we get it in front of the customer. That's one way of languaging. What might an OFNR sound like to this person? Hey, Sue, I've observed that everything that I produce is subject to a very intense review by you. I'm feeling insecure that there's something wrong in the work that I'm doing, and I need to feel secure. Would you be willing to explain to me if there are problems in my work, and if so, what I can do to address them so that they would be trusted perhaps a little bit more? And that's a pretty non-offensive way of saying, you're micromanaging my shit. And Sue might be inclined to say, I do this with everybody. This is just how I am because we've had experiences here of being burned. And I need to make sure that everything meets a certain requirement before it gets put out to market because I am on the hook for any mistake that's associated with it. That might make it a little easier for me to potentially accept that that my work product is being micromanaged for reasons that have nothing to do with me. It might be easier for me to accept that this is part of the process. I think the goal here is to at least call out the micromanagement phenomena in a non-offensive way without describing it as micromanagement. Micromanagement is generally a term that induces or provokes negative emotion. Nobody likes to be micromanaged. People like to have a sense of autonomy in their day-to-day interactions at work, that they are supported in what they're doing, and micromanagement can encroach upon that. And when it does, it can push all kinds of Autonomic nervous system buttons, as Dr. Andrew Huberman might say. Autonomic arousal. What's wrong with me? What's wrong with my work? I'm doing something that's not supported or inappropriate. And consequently lead to a uh, unpleasant work experience. Well, how do we talk about that? Well, we talk about it in a planned way. And I'm proposing, I'm not saying you should do it with these two methods, but I'm proposing that using a method to communicate how you're feeling and what you're thinking about this can be useful in addressing it. At minimum, I think what we would want to address in the micromanagement context is distinguishing uh, how much of my work product needs improvement or support, if that's truly the issue here, because I'm interested in doing a good job and wanting to do a good job. And uh, you might contend that not everybody goes to work feeling that way, and that's reasonable. But hopefully, the supervisory feedback at that point would not just be micromanagement, but it would be correction. You know, the goal here is to assist people in improving their performance on things where needed, so that they can be autonomous and have a sense of purpose. So, we're proposing a way of talking about it that does not remove the dignity of the person and create autonomic arousal for them in the appraisal that they're micromanaging. Hey, I see that everything that I do has to be a beneficiary of a review process and screening. I totally get that and appreciate the commitment to quality. That's all validation. Deferral. You know, it's been noted in lots of books and in workforce culture opinion that autonomy and mastery over a subject matter leads to employee satisfaction and lets people know that they're valued. Suggest. Would you be willing to let me know if there are problems in the work that you're reviewing? Because I'm very interested in not only knowing what I'm not doing right, knowing what I am doing right. That way, I can continue on my journey of improving my performance and potentially moving vertically in this organization here. Now you're going to get someone, you're inviting someone to disclose why they're doing what they're doing in a way that doesn't negatively appraise what they're doing. That's the whole point. The whole point is having the conversation about this at this moment, the conversation that we need to have. We want to have a conversation about the thing that's unpleasant. And can we do it in a way that's non offensive, that's um, uh, effective in getting to the pieces of information that we need? Sadly, I'm observing some notifications here that this live may not be streaming on all the platforms. I'm seeing some notifications from LinkedIn and Facebook. I hope that you're able to see them, or minimally, we can get the recording up later. But um, micromanagement, in nearly all cases, is an unpleasant phenomena. The point of today's live is to bring into your awareness the core issue in managing micromanagement, separating the appraisal of my work and my feelings about it from the process itself. And the desirable outcomes, of course, are if there is work product or work performance in me that needs to be corrected, I'm more interested in that content than just being micromanaged. Or if my work product is acceptable or more than acceptable, to distinguish that the micromanagement that's occurring has nothing to do with me. This is a process engaged in by this person that I may just have to accept and decide how I'm going to manage that moving forward, knowing that it's not a reflection of my performance. And the key to getting to that is to have the conversation with the person engaged in the quote unquote micromanagement without necessarily calling them a micromanager. And the way that you do that is through a VDSP or an OFNR. I hope that you've enjoyed today's live and took some value out of it. I love doing these. Please join us on Thursday at the Jumpstart Mastery Network, where we have another live exclusive in the network community. And if you're out there and you're being micromanaged, I hope that you think about these things that we've talked about today and you consider applying them in your workplace and with your manager that might be engaged in that activity. All the very, very best to you, and take good care.